चॉकलेट्स, कॉफ़ी, प्रिजर्व्ड मीट, कॉर्नफ्लेक्स, बटर, घी, ये सब 5% में आ रही है। फिर रिडक्शन फ्रॉम 28 to 18%, इसमें मिडिल क्लास के एस्पिरेशंस मीट करने वाले बहुत सारे चीज़ हैं। एयर कंडीशनिंग मशीन्स, TVs which are over 32 inches, all TVs now at 18%. ये I want to underline, all TVs are now at 18%. Dishwashing machines, small cars, motorcycles equal to or less than 350 cc are all now coming to 18. Agriculture goods such as tractors, agricultural, horticultural and forestry machines for soil preparation or cultivation, harvesting or threshing machines, including straw or fodder balers, grass or hay movers, composting machines, etc., are all coming down from 12 to 5%. Reduction of GST from 12 to 5% on 12 specified biopesticides. Also from 12 to 5 is natural menthol. So किसान के लिए, उनके प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए जो वो उपयोग करते हैं, उन सब में it has come down. Again from 12 to 5, handicrafts and also labor intensive sectors. What are they? Handicrafts, marble, travertine blocks, granite blocks, intermediate leather goods, ये सब 5 में आ रही है। Reduction of cement from 28 to 18, क्योंकि घर बनाने में मिडिल क्लास के लिए सीमेंट इतना आवश्यक है, इसीलिए 28 it has come down to 18. Health related items, 33 life saving drugs and medicines, and they all come down from 12 to 0. From 5 to 0 and 3 life saving drugs and medicines used for treatment of cancer, rare diseases and other severe chronic diseases. There are several drugs and medicines coming down to 5 from 12. I'm not listing each one of them out. Like that, very many other items, diagnostic kits, reagents, blood glucose monitoring system, all of them are coming to 5%. Similarly, spectacles and goggles are for correcting vision. They are also coming down to 5% from 28. I'm sure all of you all are interested in knowing about automotive sector, about which you have been frequently asking us. From 28 to 18% on small cars and motorcycles which are equal to or below 350 cc. Reduction of GST from 28 to 18 on buses, trucks and ambulances. Uniform inversion of inverted duty. The long pending inverted duty structure problem is getting corrected for the man-made textile sector by reducing GST rate on man-made fiber from 18% to 5% and man-made yarn from 12 to 5%. So that will take care of every anomaly that was there in terms of inversion. That's getting sorted out. So this actually gives effect to government's objective of the fiber neutral policy. So that's really getting seen in our action today. We are also correcting the inverted duty structure problem in fertilizer sector by reducing GST from 18% to 5% on sulfuric acid, nitric acid and ammonia, which are very important for the fertilizer sector. Renewable energy is the next. Reduction of GST from 12 to 5% on renewable energy devices, parts for their manufacture, such as biogas plant, windmills, wind-operated electricity generator, waste to energy plants, devices, PV cells, whether or not assembled in modules or made up in panel, solar cookers, solar water heaters and systems, and so on. Should I stop there and leave you all to ask questions? Just want to highlight the last one, that there is a special rate which is 40%. Actually, almost all goods are between 18 and 5. If there's any change, they only can shuffle between the 18 and 5. There is one special rate which is only for sin and super luxury goods. That special rate of 40% has also been proposed and it's cleared. That will apply only to pan masala, cigarettes, gutka, and other tobacco products such as chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco, and BD. All goods, including aerated waters, containing added sugar or other sweetening matter or flavored, caffeinated beverages, carbonated beverages, or fruit drink, or carbonated beverages with fruit juice and other non-alcoholic beverages, excluding those specified at lower rates, will all be covered under 40%. Mid-size and large cars, motorcycles of engine capacity exceeding 350 cc, aircraft, for example, helicopters and aeroplanes for personal use, distinctly for personal use, yacht and other vessels for pleasure or sports are all under 40%. So I think I have covered most of it. One last point on the RSP. GST will be levied on retail price, which is the RSP, instead of transaction value on pan masala, gutka, cigarettes and other tobacco products such as zarda, scented tobacco, unmanufactured tobacco and chewing tobacco. Again, one other point which I will conclude with. Insurance services from 18% currently will go into 2-3 different categories. I'll say that to you. Exemption of GST on all individual life insurance policies, whether term life, ULIP or endowment policies, and reinsurance thereof, to make insurance affordable for common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country. Exemption of GST on all individual health insurance policies, including family floater policies and policies for senior citizen, and reinsurance thereof to make insurance affordable for the common man and increase the insurance coverage in the country. I think I'll leave it there. We'll answer questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we move on to the question and answer
one more.
session.
Sorry, I'm getting tempted to say one last thing. There are 4 points which I want you all to take into consideration. All this will be effective 22nd September 2025, which is the first day of Navaratri. The changes in GST rates of all goods except for pan masala, gutka, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco, BD, will be implemented with effect from 22nd September 25. Except for these, for all items, the new rates will come into effect from 22nd September. I hope I'm clear on that. But pan masala, gutka, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, products like zarda, unmanufactured tobacco and BD will continue at the existing rates of GST and compensation cess where applicable till the loan and interest payment obligations under the compensation cess account are completely discharged. I hope I'm clear. Every item will come under the new rate from 22nd September, except for these tobacco-related products, which will continue on the 28% and compensation cess where applicable, till such a time we completely repay the loan. Based on this decision of this set of tobacco products continuing till some time, based on that decision, the Union Finance Minister and the Chairperson of the GST Council is actually authorized to decide on the actual date of transition for these tobacco-related products as soon as the loan and interest is cleared. Yeah, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Before we start the question answer session, please introduce yourself before asking the question. Also speak into the mic because this is being live streamed, and also raise the placard. We will take the questions one by one. So, number 9.
Ma'am, this is Priyansh from Money Control. I wanted to ask what is the possible revenue loss that has been estimated due to the rate cuts? And secondly, for the states, has there been any discussion on how the revenue will be compensated to them?
As the Finance Minister explained, the objective of this proposal, which is the GST rate structure rationalization, accompanied with process reforms. So the first request I will have is to have the appreciation of the proposal in the manner in which it has been prepared, in order to not distract ourselves with issues which will be an outcome of this process, but the core principle of this exercise needs to be appreciated in totality. We have estimated a figure. We expect that the net fiscal implication, we would not call it as a revenue loss because that doesn't seem to be the correct terminology. But net revenue implication of this proposal is expected, we have estimated it to be around 48,000 crores. This is on the consumption base of 23-24 because that is where we had all the segregated data. What I would also request is to have to appreciate this exercise better. It's important to also understand why looking at a particular number of revenue implication and highlighting it in a manner which is not proper may not present the correct picture of this exercise. The reason being, one, typically the rate rationalization exercise would result in buoyancy effects. We do expect, as mathematically one may calculate based on consumption of 23-24, but economically that is not how outcomes will evolve. And we do expect buoyancy to play a major role because of this rate rationalization exercise in enhancing the revenue. In addition, there is also an effect on the consumer behavior. What he spends on and how much does get influenced by price, which is going to be expected to get positively influenced by this exercise. We also expect compliance to improve due to this exercise. Madam explained to you how rates which were at different levels, where classification issues would be rampant, like sectors like food or transport, auto parts, etc. Once rationalized, it will improve and enhance compliance because many of these disputes would not necessarily result in revenues, but would linger on and would end up having a lot of resources, both of the business and the department, in struggling to settle those disputes. So compliance would also have a very positive effect on the revenue generation. Finally, there is a technicality that when the rates change, the rate of the value chain itself changes, and tax, is paid through ITC and cash, and the actual implication of that will have to be worked out. I would just like to highlight a number from before just to explain how these changes do play out. For example, when earlier the average rates were around 15.5 in the earlier part of the GST, the compliance in the form of GST TB was around 85 to 90%. Now the compliance has improved to almost 97% as the rates have come down. We do expect these positive changes will have and we believe that in this entire exercise will be fiscally sustainable both for center as well as the states.
54.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Shishir from Hindu Business Line. My question is about the anti-profiteering, because now so much rate reduction is there, and we do not have the anti-profiteering mechanism. As of now, we understand that GST 80 can take only the pending cases and the cases directed by the courts. So what kind of mechanism we are going to have? And the second question is about the clarification on the revenue implication, that 48,000 crore is on annualized basis or just for the FY26, ma'am?
On the first question of anti-profiteering, just to give you a couple of statistics, that since inception, under the arrangement of anti-profiteering, which is no longer in place now, only around 704 cases were registered with the authority, and 60% of the cases were initiated within the first 3 to 4 years of implementation, and the total profiteering amount that was alleged was around 4,362 crores in these 704 cases. So we expect that last time too, these data shows that industry has largely passed on the benefits of rate cut. At that time too, the industry made public statements and committed, and you would have heard and you would have seen that a lot of industries have already come out and have committed that they will be transmitting this benefits too. Administratively, both at the state level as well as at the CBIC level, we will definitely be engaging with the industry and seeing to it that the benefits to the consumer, as is planned as per the exercise, is going to be transmitted to the consumers. And we do expect that since it is to the benefit of the businesses too, it is going to happen eventually. On the issue of the revenue loss, I think the question, probably you didn't appreciate the point I made the last time. It is difficult to look at these issues mathematically. So I would rather, we have done a data based on a historical number, that is 23-24 consumption. How will 26 happen will obviously depend on how consumption evolves. And we, as I said, are confident that this is going to be fiscally sustainable.
This is Deepshika from the Economic Times. One just follow up to the revenue question. What would be what is the revenue neutral rate after these reductions? And also on compensation cess, what happens after the loans are paid, especially on the tobacco products and high-end luxury products? Is there any decision on the future of the cess? Will there be something else coming in its place, or?
I'll have the Revenue Secretary tell you about the revenue neutral rates. But on the compensation cess, we've discussed it today very clearly. It will continue on those goods which I mentioned, the tobacco and tobacco-related products, over and above the 28%, which is the system which prevails now, till such a time that we repay the loan. And after that, there will not be a cess. And those items which were with compensation cess have already been proposed to be at 40% because they are sin goods rate. They are, as I said, 40% is not part of the scheme of things, it's at the extreme. No other good will go there except for these tobacco-related products. So they will be, the incidence will be on them at 40%. Revenue neutrality.
No, I didn't get the question. Revenue neutral would mean what? No, but what, can you explain your question? What revenue neutral would mean?
Down from 15.5, the average rate, what would it be after these reductions?
It'll obviously depend upon how the transactions happen. So consumption, I am assuming what you are saying is the total value of transaction total tax collected divided by total value of transaction. So that is something one can calculate historically. For the future, as I said, we expect a lot of effects of buoyancy, compliance, consumer behavior. So this number is going to be obviously something which we will get to as we reach there.
238.
Anshul Magazine from Indian Express. Just a clarification on the tobacco part, because I believe when GST was rolled out, Centre had the powers to levy NCCD on tobacco. So how will it get levied on, say, something like pan masala? If you could elaborate that. And secondly, was there any decision regarding electric vehicles? Because that was also one of the proposals submitted by the GOM.
See, on the pan masala, tobacco and everything else, under the GST, till such a time the loan is repaid, as I said, the 28% plus the compensation cess will run. Once I clear the loan, they all come to 40%. And that's what is the GST.
Any?
EV remains at where it was. Yes, it remains at where it was, 5.
214.
सवाल चूंकि अभी काफ़ी खबर चल रही थी कि जो 2500 जो अभी ब्रांडेड 1000 रुपये से ऊपर का जो शर्ट एंड फुटवेयर्स है, मैं राजीव हूँ सर दैनिक जागरण से, तो उस पे उसको 2500 उसकी सीमा की जा रही थी, जो 2500 से ऊपर है उनको उन पे ज़्यादा टैक्स लगेगा, तो ऐसा कुछ हुआ या अब सब पे जो भी फुटवेयर और गारमेंट्स होंगे 1000 रुपये से ऊपर के भी उन पे भी सिर्फ 5% ही लगेगा? इस पे कुछ फैसला हुआ? नंबर 1। नंबर 2 सर कि स्मॉल कार, मिड साइज कार, तो क्या इसमें 1200 सीसी से ऊपर वाले सभी कार पे 40% लगेगा?
जहाँ तक फुटवेयर का सवाल है, आज के दिन 2 रेट्स थे। 1000 रुपये से कम वालों के ऊपर 12% और 1000 रुपये से ऊपर वाले के ऊपर 18% लगता था। सो जो चेंज किए गए हैं, जैसे आपको ज्ञात है कि मैडम ने पहले बताया कि 12% का रेट अभी नहीं है, तो 2 रेट जो अभी हैं वो 5 और 18 के हैं। 5% पे जो 2500 से कम वाली वस्तुएं वाले फुटवेयर हैं और 18% पे जो 2500 से ऊपर वाली वस्तुएं हैं। आपका दूसरा सवाल किस इशू से था?
सीसी।
हाँ, मैडम ने आपको बताया कि छोटी कारें जो हैं वो 18 पे होंगी और बाकी सारी कारें जो हैं वो 40 पे होंगी। डेफिनेशन तो आई थॉट वो तो डिपार्टमेंट MHRT मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट रेगुलेटर का है। पेट्रोल की 1200 सीसी और डीजल की 1500 सीसी होती है और उसके साथ शायद लेंथ का भी एक लिमिटेशन होता है। तो जो उनका रेगुलेशंस के हिसाब से छोटी कारें हैं वो हमारी 18 पे रहेंगी। हम लोग अलग से कोई नया डेफिनेशन उसका नहीं बना रहे हैं।
45.
I had a related question on hotels and on air travel. Again, there were 2 classifications there. So if and I suppose, I think all these would be in the detailed press release that you'd be issuing, but if you could just help us.
269.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Girish from Mint. Ma'am, some states had suggested that there could be a new duty imposed on, items on the 28%, which will move to 40%. Has that been considered? And secondly, ma'am, there is no cess applicable on high-end cars, which has moved to 40%, right, ma'am?
If an item has moved to 40%, there's nothing more to be added.
Okay, ma'am.
Because the maximum rate which you can levy on a car, on any item is 40%. And in the 40% category, we put all the tobacco and tobacco-related sin goods and super luxury items only.
Number 3.
Hello ma'am, this is Priyoshmita from Informist Media. Ma'am, first I wanted a clarification. Are we still looking at discontinuing compensation cess around November? As in, is that the timeline we are following to repay the loans? And secondly, states had pitched for some kind of a mechanism to compensate them after the rate changes are effective because of the revenue loss. So has there been any discussion, and is the center looking at something on those lines? Thank you.
I think I've mentioned it clearly, till such a time that the loans don't get repaid. We will continue with the 28% items and the compensation cess collection over it, particularly only those items which I read out, tobacco-related products, and they will continue till such a time I repay the loan, which is the council has authorized the finance minister, to stop that collection the moment the loan is repaid. I cannot speculate on the time now whether it is October or November, but it will be well within, I think, this calendar year.
Number 2.
I think, first of all, I would like to request the media to look at the GST Council as where the center and the states are seated together. I mentioned this in the council also. The center may be a 1/3 partner, the states put together can be 2/3 partner. But we are all in it together. So anything that which is gained or lost is for everybody. It's not as though states have lost, the center is not gained. If all of us have lost, all of us have lost. And I don't think, and I'm glad that the Revenue Secretary had made this point in the council, it's a revenue instance. The incidence is what is the matter. It's not a static situation. Once the rates have come down per the economic theory that you may want to quote, the buoyancy goes up. People come out to buy more. And therefore, this discussion has happened in today's council. And I have put this argument before, that the center and the states are seated equally. And any gain or any foregone, none of that is perceived, because when rates are coming down, we expect the market to be more buoyant, people to come out and spend more. However, all of us are sitting there together. Compensate for states' loss, even center is losing, if anything. Center loses more in a way. Because 50-50, you divide from my 50, another 41 goes back to the states. So I want the media, particularly those who are covering the economy, finance ministry, to understand in the GST Council, the center and the states are together in it. Nobody is a donor and nobody is a donee within the GST Council.
Number 2.
Pallavi from...
Can I just supplement, because this issue has come from many. So our earlier request was, there are two parts to this issue, and I would just request the indulgence of the media also on this. This repeated use of the word called revenue loss. You know, so obviously somebody has lost to somebody or something to that effect. Kindly understand, this is a tax rationalization exercise which is resulting in reduction of rates of taxes to be paid, let us say, by a common man. Rates paid by on food, on health, on agricultural implements, on labor-oriented sectors like job work. I am not very sure whether loss is the right interpretation of government saying that we have given money to a consumer. It is an economy that we are talking about. Both of them are there. After all, the money which government will not collect as tax is going to be remaining in the pockets of that consumer who will end up using it. So my request is this terminology loss, because it presents the impression differently from, and which is why I had requested. There is a revenue implication, naturally. So the second part to this understanding is that revenue implication is a dynamic number, because it will depend on how response happens. Mathematically, one can calculate, that can only be done on historical data. But that historical data may not end up to be true, because we do expect behavior of consumer changing, buoyancy factors changing, compliance improving, and this has been the historical reality. You would remember that after compensation cess went away, the buoyancies really went up of GST. So we do expect things to move in the positive direction. We have done our numbers, and we believe it is fiscally sustainable. The number that I told you is based on 23-24. And even with projections and expectation on other things turning in the positive side, which we are hearing both from the consumers as well as from the industry, we expect this exercise to be fiscally sustainable.
Okay, I'm Pallavi from CNN News 18. Ma'am, two things over here. There were 8 states which actually said that we want something called the state level GST on products like alcohol, petrol, and real estate. Was this even discussed at the GST meeting today? And second is that they are all talking, I'm sorry to use that word, but revenue loss. 15,000 crore revenue loss is what Sitharaman said. I know there are states like Karnataka and Kerala who insisted on that, and I think that is why your meeting was delayed. How do you want to actually address that? Because many of them are also facing problems like they're talking about floods. And finally, when you are talking about a GST restructuring, was the tariff turmoil with America an important consideration?
The tariff turmoil is not a matter which influenced the GST reform, because we've been at it now for more than 1.5 years. Some group of ministers was working on rate rationalization. Some other group of ministers a bit later was working on insurance, and so on. And compensation cess was a reality, that it is going to end the moment you paid back the loan. None of this has anything to do with the tariffs. So, no, there's nothing to do with the tariffs at all. One. Second, you were talking about petrol, diesel, 8 states. None of that was subject of our discussion because that is not part of the GST Council at all. And the third, numbers are being thrown around. This much loss, that much loss. You've just heard the Revenue Secretary detail on the basis of 23-24 numbers. Am I right? 23-24 data, which is the last available for all the categories. And he stated what is the net amount that we'll have to be looking at. So there is nothing more. I'm not going to join forces to argue on, oh, somebody said this much, somebody else said that much. Our data is here, we put it, and that is coming out to all of you all as well in the press note.
237.
मैम तरुण शर्मा फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस। मैम 2 सवाल हैं, एक क्लैरिटी के लिए पूछना चाहूँगा। जो टैक्स इंसिडेंस है, आपने कहा कि हाईएस्ट ब्रैकेट जो रहेगा वो 40% रहेगा, तो जो अभी तक सेस लगता था वो नहीं लगेगा। अब जो भी चीज़ें होंगी वो मैक्सिमम 40% पे होंगी टबैको प्रोडक्ट्स को छोड़ के। और दूसरा सवाल मैम, जो अनमैन्ड एयरक्राफ्ट्स, एक ड्रोन के लिए भी एक एजेंडा था, क्या मैम उस पर भी कोई फैसला हो पाया? एक चीज़ मैम, एक क्लैरिटी और चाहेंगे कि जो डीलर्स के पास अभी गाड़ियां खड़ी हैं, यदि वो 22 तारीख से पहले 22 तारीख के बाद बिकती हैं तो वो किस कैटेगरी में आएंगी? क्या वो जो अभी का जो टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर है उसमें कैलकुलेट की जाएंगी या नए वाले टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर में कैलकुलेट की जाएंगी?
शुरू में जैसे माननीय मंत्री ने आपको बताया कि ये हमारा अब 2 रेट जीएसटी स्ट्रक्चर हो गया है, तो 5 और 18 आर द रेट्स. 40 is what we consider as a special rate, and on the lower side, apart from exemption, there are some other special rates. Special rates are meant to take care of either very, very unique sectors or unique requirements or certain policy positions that government may have had on those. Typically, these special rates are considered special because they are not by their very nature part of a general structure. So they are not expected to be open-ended. It is not like this is a rate, then you can swing people things between here and there. 40 is expected, items have been identified and positioned there. This is the way in which, that is why this is called GST rate rationalization structure. So it's a rate structure itself which has been rationalized, within which then certain principles have been followed to fit things. That is point number one. What was your second question? I would suggest that specific items and procedural issues off the cuff response will not be a good idea. Department will be issuing detailed instructions about everything, and we will see to it that those who need it receive it in transparent fashion, in a timely fashion. वही जो आपने बताया ना, ट्रांजिशन वाले जितने इश्यूज हैं इम्प्लीमेंटेशन रिलेटेड, आज जीएसटी काउंसिल का डिसीजन हुआ है, तो उसको ऑफ द कफ रिस्पांस देना ठीक नहीं होगा. वो हमारा डिपार्टमेंट डिटेल में सारे इश्यूज़ को एड्रेस करते हुए जवाब देगा उसका. और आज इसके बाद मैडम ने जैसे इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया है, एक फ्रीक्वेंटली आस्क्ड क्वेश्चंस का एक लिस्ट भी इशू होगा, प्रेस नोट होगा जिसमें सारे डिटेल्स होंगे आइटम वाइज, जो आप देख सकते हैं.
189.
मैम मैं आलोक प्रियदर्शी CNBC आवाज़ से। सबसे पहले जीएसटी काउंसिल के चेयरपर्सन के तौर पर आपको बधाई, क्योंकि आपने पूरे कंसेंसस के साथ ही इसका लागू करवाया। मेरा सवाल ये है कि रेट में कटौती हुई है, सबको फ़ायदा होगा, लेकिन ये रेट आम आदमी तक इसका फ़ायदा पहुँचे उसके लिए क्या कोई मैकेनिज्म बनाया जाएगा? कि एंटी प्रॉफिटरिंग मैकेनिज्म अभी है नहीं, या ऐसी एंटी प्रॉफिटरिंग बॉडी है नहीं, तो कैसे इसको रेट को हम जो कंज्यूमर है उस तक पहुंचाएंगे ताकि कंपनी इसमें बेनिफिट ना करें, ग्राहकों तक उनका फ़ायदा पहुंचे?
हमने
सर हिंदी में बता दीजिए।
एंट्री प्रॉफिटियरिंग का हम लोगों ने जैसे अभी थोड़ी देर पहले जो उत्तर दिया उसमें बताया कि पिछली बार जब ये एक्ट में एक प्रोविज़न था, उस प्रावधान के अंतर्गत 704 केसेस रजिस्टर हुए थे कुल मिला के, जिसके करीब 60% केसेस पहले 3 से 4 साल में थे, जब उम्मीद होती है कि ये इश्यूज़ आते हैं ज़्यादा। और टोटल जो प्रॉफिटियरिंग का अमाउंट एलेज किया गया था इन इश्यूज़ के ऊपर, वो 4,362 करोड़ का था। तो इन फिगर्स को देखकर ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि इंडस्ट्री ने ट्रांसमिशन में बहुत ज़्यादा कोई मतलब इश्यूज़ आए, कंसिडरिंग द स्केल ऑफ द एक्सरसाइज। तो इस बार भी हम लोगों को ये काफ़ी कॉन्फिडेंस है कि इंडस्ट्री रेट्स को ट्रांसमिट करेगा। पब्लिकली काफ़ी मेजर सेक्टर्स की इंडस्ट्री ने ऑलरेडी ये पब्लिकली कहा है, कमिट किया है कि हम इस रेट को ट्रांसमिट करेंगे। इकोनॉमिकली ऑल्सो हमें लगता है कि फोर्सेस ऑफ मार्केट कंपटीशन विल वर्क इन दैट डायरेक्शन। एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिवली CBIC और स्टेट लेवल पे वी आर एंगेजिंग एंड गोइंग टू एंगेज विद इंडस्ट्रीज टू सी दैट द बेनिफिट जो गवर्नमेंट कमिटेड है इस बात के लिए कि ये कंज्यूमर तक पहुँचे, वो पहुँचाने के तरीके देखे जाएंगे।
49.
Ma'am, Prakash Priyadarshi from ET now. So what will be the overall impact on GDP after implementing these rate rationalization decisions?
In something on which you like to speculate on, it depends on how people have received this rate reduction, and they'll have to come out and once you have a couple of months going with all the purchases, then we'll be able to get some number. It'll be too much for me to speculate on it now, but I think it'll have a very positive impact on the GDP.
209.
Prashant Sahu from Financial Express. So the rate reductions will have a positive impact on the consumption, and it will also help widen the taxpayer base. So the revenue implication, as the secretary said, is about 48,000 crore. So as per your calculations, how soon it will be, neutralized, given that the buoyancy will be there, consumption will increase, and the taxpayer base will widen?
So this seems to be different ways of asking the same question, which is already answered. I don't think you got what I explained. I did not say 48,000 is an implication for this year. I said 23-24 data of consumption says, if you calculate with that consumption being what it is going to cost 48,000 crore. But then I also supplemented it by saying that these numbers will be dynamic because of the parameters I explained. So we'll have to see as we go along, as we go further. But as Madam said, it is going to have a positive impact on the economy. We are hopeful, and we do believe that this is going to be positively taken in both by the business, trade, industry, as well as consumers.
184.
मैम जय मिश्र दूरदर्शन से। प्रधानमंत्री जी का भी रिएक्शन आ गया, उन्होंने आपको बधाई दी है, जो जीएसटी काउंसिल है उसके सभी सदस्यों को बधाई दी है, लेकिन सबसे लास्ट में उन्होंने कहा है कि ये रिफॉर्म्स छोटे और मध्यम उद्योगों को ईज़ ऑफ लिविंग में मदद करेंगे। तो ये शायद संदेश पहुंचना चाहिए, उस पर मैं थोड़ा सा आपसे क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहूँगा, कैसे फ़ायदा पहुँचाएगा एमएसएमई सेक्टर को?
एमएसएमईज को बहुत सारे फ़ायदा है इसमें, क्योंकि अपने शुरुआत में से ही हम बोल रहे हैं, वो आपको मैंने इस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में भी कही, स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म भी किए हैं। कंप्लायंसेस के लिए उनको बहुत समय नहीं लगेगा और सिस्टम भी सिंपल हो गया है, रजिस्ट्रेशन भी सिंपल है, और क्लासिफिकेशन के वजह से जो कन्फ्यूजन आता था वो भी अभी नहीं होना है। ऊपर से इन्वर्शन करेक्शन जब हम कर रहे हैं रिफंड्स तुरंत मिलेगा और जहां इन्वर्शन नहीं है पैसा लॉक नहीं होएगा, मतलब मंथ तक यू वेट करो, आई मीन यू हैव पुट द मनी इन, यू आर नॉट गेटिंग द रिफंड, वो सिचुएशन अभी नहीं है। लॉक्ड अप मनी का प्रॉब्लम जो एमएसएमई को बार बार आता है वो नहीं होने वाले हैं। ऊपर से उनका रॉ मटेरियल और उनका इंटरमीडिएरी प्रोडक्ट्स जो उनके लिए चाहिए वो सब रेट में कम हो रही है, इसीलिए उनका पूरे बेनिफिट ही ऐसे मैं समझ रही।
188.
Hello ma'am, this is Suchandrima, I'm from INS. So is there any changes in GST filing?
Is there any rate changes in the GST filing? Of course there are.
प्रोसेस आप बताना चाहेंगे प्रोसेस रिफॉर्म के 2-3 एलिमेंट्स, रजिस्ट्रेशन एंड
देखिए इसमें जैसे regarding the process reforms, many steps have been taken. One is that GST registration process has been simplified for especially for small businesses.